This is the Final Word Story Time, number 254. Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins in a show that is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn, the number one plaintiff law firm in Australia. It's also brought to you by Nerd Pledge and the wonderful people who pledge in it and help us play the game that we end up playing. Adam, you've got a cricket ball in your hand. You're back. You're back in your safe place, your comfort zone, fingers on the seam, ready to twirl an imaginary off-break into the sky.
In more ways than you might know, I had a long net last night at Lord's. Oh gosh, I loved it. Yeah. I fucking loved it, Jeff. We bought two. We bought them at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, or hired two. But at 9 o'clock, they're like, well, there's multiple nets here, so we essentially hired three for the price of two. It was so good. We had a dozen people there. You know, guys getting 2 hits, long spells. It was proper. And, on the 14th of January, it takes some commitment to get out in the freezing cold, pouring rain in London to do that. So a sign of things to come. Loved everything about last night. So I'm feeling, what's that line in Cool Runnings? I'm feeling Olympic today. I am feeling cricket today. There is no doubt I'm feeling cricket today and looking forward to tearing into things. I should say before we go anywhere, I'm wearing my Tabs hoodie today. We've done really well with marathon, half marathon recruitment. 10K, open still. Come. It's the best weekend. It is the best weekend. All you need to do to come and join us is to find me on the internet and text me or WhatsApp me or DM me or find me on Patreon or whatever. You'll find me easily enough. I'm quite online. DM me on Instagram, whatever it is. We'll register you in the 10K and we can help raise a lot of money for the Taverners. Not in their 75th birthday anymore, but still every year for them is a worthy year. Great charity who we adore and love working with. So this is the time of year that you might be thinking, I don't know, put on a few kilos at Christmas or your New Year's resolution to get healthier or fitter or whatever. What better way than to have a dedicated goal, the May bank holiday weekend in Edinburgh. That's my sale to you, my dear listeners.
Yeah, I can see it. I like it. 254. This is our own personal marathon, the Storytime Marathon. What's a 254?
That's a Bradman 1930 at Lord's, which many described as his finest innings. I remember talking to David Fruth about that during the Calling the Shots documentary, and him saying that one of the great regrets for him is that he wasn't able. There's no archival footage of it. He spent his 40th birthday. The centenary test of 1977 was Frith's 40th birthday. How appropriate for such a giant of the sport, covering it, historian and so on. But he anchors so many of those memories of him as a little boy watching Bradman and listening about Bradman and reading about Bradman to what happened in 1930 at Lord's when he was making such a mark. So 1930 is the 254, and then 1937 is the 270 not out, which we've come to a lot, which are usually sort of on the podium as number one and number two for Bradmania types.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're talking about giant careers, I've got one to tell you about, so I'm going to get into it because I don't have any time to waste. This is right up there in terms of some of the stories that I've been most excited to tell you about. It comes via Sean Smith. Sean Smith has been playing the game of Nerd Pledge, which means he sends in an amount of currency in a specific configuration that relates to cricket, and we have to work out what it means. It is $3.42. He's gone with the AUD, which is interesting because Sean is Irish and lives in Ireland. So why he's gone AUD, I'm not sure.
I've just got his Irish shirt, but I never really realised. I've got an Irish playing shirt from Brendan McCollum, which
not McCollum.
Which I have sitting up on my wall here. But what an appropriate time to get that out. The whole Irish team signed it. It wasn't signed for me, but it was given to me. And I thought, given it, Sean Smith, who's one of our great Irish supporters, he goes to all the major games that Ireland play in England and World Cups a couple of years ago in the States. Great man, played for the Final Word a number of times, and loved spending time with him and his great family. I mean, we've had Noah play for us. His wife Carmel's been at all of our things as well. So g'day, Sean, and I'm glad that you've got a belter of a story coming. Do you want me to read the clue for you?
Read the clue. Lay it on him.
Okay, my nerd pledge relates to someone who, in a classical sense, could be called the seventh and could have a connection with a fictional gentleman adventurer of the First World War. He also may well be an Irish DOB. However, while the pledge identifies this particular cricketer, I'm more interested in the life his son, who, as far as I can tell, has no cricketing experience at all. I can only think that he must have been an inspiration for at least one Spielberg character. And if there isn't a book written about him, there needs to be. I might research him further and see if I can pull the bones of it together. If I didn't have a bona fide reference for his exploits, his story would be scarcely believable. Jeff, that sounds like a great intro for you. I'm going to give you, you've got 21 minutes to tell the story. That is my challenge to you. Please accept it.
Let's see how we go. All right, seventh in a classical sense. Should link to the name Septimus if you're going back to Latin style. You know, you've got Optimus Prime, you know, that means first or first best. They weren't very inventive with their Latin in Transformers, I think, because like Optimus Prime is like the best, most best. And then they have the guy called Ultra Magnus, which also means like the best, big, great thing or something. So right. they're pretty literal when it comes to Transformers. I was tossing around with Septimus. I'm like, okay, if you've got seven, I think we've talked about the name Septimus on the show before. There must have been a cricketing Septimus who came up, but I couldn't find anything in our notes. So if you can remember when we talked about Septimus on this program, I'm pretty sure we did. Please let me know, comment or something somewhere.
Not in my head.
Now, off the top of your head, you're like, Septimus has got to be the seventh son, right? And then the thing that came to my head, I was like, Septimus, then I was like, oh, Gladiator, Maximus Decimus or whatever, what's his last name? Meridius. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, father of a murdered son, husband of a murdered wife, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, okay, well, that's got to be the second one, right? Like Deuce, Decimus, but no, it's actually the 10th. Decimus is the 10th. And then you're trying to figure out like who goes where when it comes to Roman naming principles. So they do have names, like male names, like Quintus being the 5th, Sextus being the 6th, Septimus being the 7th, Decimus being the 10th. But they don't have corresponding names for like the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. Like those don't come up as people's names through Roman history. And so I got distracted looking into this. The reason for this is that they're not named after the order of their birth, but they're named after the month that they're born in. And the earlier months don't have number-coded names. They've got different names, like March, Martius is March. So if you're born in March, you get called Marcus rather than being called Quintus or whatever if you're born in the 5th month, and the 5th month is actually July originally because they only had 10 months in the Roman calendar before they added the next 2 and confused everybody, right?
I should be calling them all Marty. I've never met a Marty I didn't enjoy the company of. Yeah, March births should be Martys.
Marty, maybe in some way it is. So August, or what became August, is actually Sextimus, which is the 6th month, and then September means 7, even though it's the 9th month. October is 8, even though it's the 10th. November, 9. December, 10, but actually 12. It gets confusing, right? It gets messy. But all of this is to say that this doesn't mean that Septimus Drummond Lambert is the 7th son, or would be the 7th son had he been born in Roman times. But he probably was, given that he was born in 1876 in Dublin. And so things had changed by that point. There is another Septimus who played a test match, Septimus Kinnear, and maybe that's when this came up on the show another time, although, like I said, I can't find any evidence for it, who played one test match at the SCG in 1911. But he is different to Septimus Lambert, who is this Irish cricketer who, from the 1890s to the 1920s, long career, plays a lot for Dublin University, for Leinster, and he plays 23 times for Ireland. 7 of those are credited as first-class matches. This includes Ireland's first ever first-class match against London County, which is the team that W.G. Grace used to rock up for, and Arthur Conan Doyle played first-class cricket for. And we have talked about London County on the show before.
I know there have been attempts to rejuvenate London County. I think there was a bloke who played for Leicester who had a crack in getting it going again. But yeah, it's one of those things that deserves it deserves to have nutters go about trying to make it a professional team again. It'll never happen, but they could have found a way through with the London Spirit, perhaps, to have some through line between the London Spirit and what London County did, albeit briefly in the early decades of the 20th century. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. Find the who's the modern equivalent to Conan Doyle? Who's the crime writer of get Patricia Cornwall down to play for London County? Is she still with us? I'm not sure. Right, where are we? This fella Septimus. He's one of these people who gets talked up by other people who write about cricket, who describe him as being better than he probably was, as in he's described as being one of the best wicket keepers to ever stand behind the stumps, which is probably not true, and described as being able to throw a cricket ball 100 yards with perfect accuracy, which is also probably not true for a guy who was playing Irish.
Have you noticed that everyone had a good arm in that era? Yeah. It always threw the ball 100 yards exactly. It's always, they threw the ball 100 yards.
And they were almost always a great cover fielder, you know.
And also, it's like you see that with the great drop kickers of the earlier part of the 20th century. They all drop kicked the ball 100 yards or whatever, which clearly didn't happen. But anyway,
right.
That is a formulation I've certainly heard before, that he could throw the ball 100 yards.
So he's a decent player anyway. He, at one point in a club game, makes 75 out of a score of all out 86 and is the last man out in that team. So that's a heavy bannerman. Only 184 first-class runs, but he does make 342 runs for Ireland in all matches, and 342 was our nerd pledge number. So this is our guy. He's got to be, or he's the father of our guy, right? Because this number points us to our son. Now, the link, Sean said that Septimus had a link to a fictional gentleman adventurer of the post-World War I era. There's a comic series called Blake and Mortimer, who are very British characters. One's a gentleman scholar, one's a military officer. They both have this link to India. One of them supposedly born in India. The other one led Indian soldiers during the war. And weirdly, this is a Belgian comic at that period where the Belgians are sort of obsessed with Britishness in some ways, in the manner of, you know, Tintin with Thompson and Thompson and whatnot. So these comics get published in the Tintin comics originally, like they're books with multiple comics in them, produced as serials, and they're drawn in a similar graphic style. And the nemesis of these two British heroes is a fella called Professor Jonathan Septimus. So there's our link to Septimus, and he's linked to gentlemen adventurers of the post-World War I era. And then his son basically ends up being a gentleman adventurer of the post-World War I era. He's not a cricketer. Septimus has a nephew called Ham Lambert, which is just a great name. Ham Lambert, who played cricket and rugby for Ireland. But his son, Septimus' son, Eric Lambert, does not. Channel the intro of Trainspotting. He says, I chose something else, right? He gets out of there. Now, Eric Lambert, you might be confused if you know Australian literature. You might think that sounds familiar. This is not the Eric Lambert who's the Australian writer who served during World War II in New Guinea. We talked about prisoners of war of the Japanese a couple of weeks ago, who was involved in getting the prisoners at Changi out of the prison camp and repatriating them back to Australia. Went on to become the founder of Overland magazine, wrote a book about Ned Kelly, was friends with Frank Hardy while Frank Hardy was writing Power Without Glory. Frank Hardy got Eric to join the Communist Party. This is a different Eric Lambert, the Australian literature version, right?
We should do a full story about Frank Hardy at some point, I reckon, or maybe more about, you know, the links between, well, the Power Without Glory story anyway. By the way, I got a message after your storytime answer about Sandakan, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago? Was that sort of, we did that during Christmas, didn't we? I got a message from Tim Watts, who's a member for Jelly Brand, wanting us to at some point talk about the POW game that was played between Weary Dunlop's POWs and the English who are in the same camp as him, which I think's a nice. At some point, we'll find some way to go back to that, because it elicited a significant response from our audience, which is pretty cool. When, you know, when we're able to do something that strikes a chord, and that certainly did in that late night recording session in Ivanhoe.
Yeah, I think that might have been in Changi as well, because I don't imagine they would have had any space or been in any state to be playing cricket once they got up to the Burma Railway, which is where Dunlop did the bulk of his remarkable heroic medical work to keep so many of those soldiers alive who worked on the Burma Railway, which may just come up in just a moment. So we've got Eric Lambert. The writer is the one born in 1918 in London who moves to Australia. Our Eric Lambert is born a bit earlier in 1909 in Dublin. Educated at the Royal School at Dungannon, which is one of those schools that was founded in the 1600s to provide English-style education to Irish students, so you can get a sense of the social status of the family. Dungannon's in Northern Ireland. You know, there's a strong British influence or connection. He must, though, be a linguist. This guy's an incipient polyglot. He's just, his language feats are remarkable. So he gets out of school, and at 19 or 20, he's done a year at Trinity College, which is where Samuel Beckett played first-class cricket and where Eric's dad played as well. Now, he does a little bit of teaching at a school, and then he applies for a posting to be a police officer in India, which is a pretty bold thing for a 19 or 20-year-old to do. And he goes to India, and it's not just India. This is Assam, which is way out, well, east, not west. But we talked about the geography of Bangladesh the other day, and I described it as being top right corner of, if you picture where India is. Assam is even more top right corner because there's a strap of India that goes up above Bangladesh to the north of Bangladesh and then comes down the other side and then opens up and continues. So that sort of Seven Sisters area up towards the mountains, towards the Himalayas, that's over the far side of Bangladesh basically, and it has a little sort of reverse chin strap that goes over the top of Bangladesh to connect them to those areas. So this is the area where he ends up as an assistant superintendent of India Police. The info that I can find on this is based on obituaries, so of course they're complimentary, and I imagine you could have different readings about what British-run police forces were doing in India at that time. But according to these obituaries, at least, he's a hit when he gets there. He wins people over. He learns Hindi, he learns Bengali, he learns 3 other tribal dialects because it's a very linguistically dense area, small regions, small distances end up with entirely different languages as you move from place to place. So he goes there and he stays for the best part of 20 years mostly around this region. He learns these languages. He gets himself settled, and during the time he's there, because he's gone there in the late 1920s, World War II happens during that 20 years that he's in this part of the world. So we talked in that episode a couple of weeks ago briefly about how the Japanese were pushing west through Burma towards India. Mostly this is about cutting off supply lines to China. So the Brits and the Americans are originally supplying China through British Burma. They're landing supplies in Rangoon. They're taking them up through Burma. It's called the Burma Road. And it's an arduous journey. It's over 1,000 kilometres, very rough road through very mountainous areas at the end. But it will get them to southern China, and they're able to truck in supplies to help the Chinese who are fighting the Japanese at the time. The Japanese want to cut this off. They also eventually want to overtake India as a British dominion at the time. But their first priority is to try to cut off this logistics support to China. So they invade Burma, well, Myanmar now, but I'll use the name as it was then for the sake of ease. They occupy Rangoon. They cut off that supply line, but they've got their own logistics trouble at that point because the Japanese are also using Rangoon to get their ships in with their supplies, but the Americans by this point, this is like 1942, they break the Japanese naval codes, and so they're able to sink Japanese shipping at a tremendous rate, and all of the supply ships that are trying to get to Burma around the southern tip of around Singapore, sort of coming down from Thailand around the Malay Peninsula, they're getting sunk on the way. So that's why the Japanese decide to try to build the Burma Railway, which goes from Bangkok through to Burma, so they can try to move things by rail. And that's where we talked about Sandakan, where almost all of the prisoners there died in captivity. That was the highest percentage of death in captivity, but the highest overall numbers were on the Burma Railway, where it was about a third of the prisoners there died, but you're talking tens of thousands. So there's all of these things are fatefully intertwined as to the fates of everybody who perishes trying to build that railway, because the shipping lines of the Japanese have been cut off after their effort to cut off the shipping lines to the Chinese. If all of this generally hangs together and makes sense. So in this area, in this part between Assam and between Burma as it is at the time, there's a lot of mountain, there's a lot of jungle, there's a lot of relatively unexplored area, and at various points in the campaign, the Chinese try to assist with troops. They try to push down and put pressure on the Japanese in Burma as well. So you've got the Brits trying to wage a war out of India into Burma. You've got the Japanese coming from Thailand into Burma and the Chinese coming south from China into Burma. They've all got overly extended supply lines. It's being fought in jungle. It's all of the problems with insects and diseases and the lack of medicines and so on. Everybody's sick. Everybody's malnourished. Most of the soldiers in this theatre are dying, not from combat, but from malnutrition and a lack of access to medicine. And so, and it's a horrendous theatre of the war, as a lot of those Pacific theatres were for those reasons. So Eric Lambert is a civilian. He's police. He's not army, but he gets drawn in at one place into this hinterland because they've got tens of thousands of Chinese troops in there, and they've got lost. They don't have a proper sense of their location. They don't have access to supplies. But Eric Lambert, a few years earlier, 1935, 1936, went on a huge surveying expedition to explore the area between the Brahmaputra River and the Chindwan River. And that's the river that goes through Assam and the river that goes through northwest Burma. So right in this spot where this conflict is happening, that's where he's been one of the key people on this surveying expedition from a few years earlier. And he'd gone back to London. He'd presented, I think, to the Royal Geographical Society. And this is maybe what Sean's talking about with the Spielberg character. He's got this Indiana Jones kind of the anthropology interest, the polymath ability to switch between disciplines. So he's done this. He's supported this landmark geological survey. He's done a bunch of anthropological study as well from his time living with people who weren't as accessible to the Brits in India as he was able to make them. And because he knows the terrain, he gets sent in to find a group of Chinese soldiers and helps lead 5,000 troops from the Fifth Army out of this heavily jungled mountainous area where they probably would have ended up not making it out. He leads them to safety. China, which is run by Chiang Kai-shek at the time because the nationalists haven't, they've sort of got a truce with the communists and Mao hasn't taken over China at this point. So our mate Eric gets made an honorary general in the Chinese army by Chiang Kai-shek for rescuing his troops, which is a fairly wild accomplishment to have laid on your desk. And he's given a commission, so it's one of those things where it's not like he's in there leading troops, but he's kind of awarded the rank, and in a similar way gets recognised as a major in the UK military. Survives the war. 1947, he's like, cool, I've been in India for almost 20 years. Time to do something else. Starts another 20 years working for MI6, or sort of officially working for the British Foreign Office. Does jobs in Afghanistan, like in the 60s, which is going to be a pretty wild spot. A few countries in Africa, a few countries in South America. Noted as an anthropologist for his reports, he's called in to advise the US government about relations with Native American populations. Like, this guy's everywhere for this next 20 years. He retires in 1968, so basically he spent 40 years in the process of having this career. And a few years before he retires, while he's in Colombia, he stumbles upon a tribute to a soldier named James Rooke from a long time earlier, right? Long dead British officer. You could do a whole podcast series probably just on James Rooke. So this is a guy who fought in the French Revolutionary Wars in 1791. He's still alive 24 years later to fight at Waterloo, having been part of Wellington's army in the interim leading up until Waterloo. Once the Napoleonic Wars are over, he's like, oh, there's nothing to do in Europe anymore. I'm bored. So he goes to South America. I'm not sure why he goes to South America, but he does. He joins Simon Bolivar, who's the great revolutionary leader of South America. If you don't know about Bolivar, but picture, if you will, a world where you need a Venezuelan freedom fighter to resist a colonial power. Hard to imagine, I know, but try to picture that kind of scenario. And Bolivar is the one who leads the war against the Spanish to kick out the Spanish colonists, and the births of all of the modern countries of Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, Venezuela, all of those are born from Bolivar's liberation campaign against Spanish colonialism. So Rooke goes and joins him. He's like, fuck, I like this Simon Bolivar guy. Let's go and get involved with what he's doing. Rook is also Dublin-born, British inclination. He leads a foreign legion of Irish and British soldiers, and they remain a presence through the Wars of Liberation. Even though Rook is killed in 1819, he must be 50 years old by this point. He leads an uphill bayonet charge and ends up finally, his luck runs out after surviving all of the Napoleonic Wars. But this foreign legion continues and is part of the liberation of the South American continent from the Spanish. And Eric Lambert is like, well, this is interesting. I want to learn about this. Presumably he's only started learning Spanish in his 50s, maybe his 40s at latest. Yeah. He makes this his life's work. He produces a vast 3-volume history in Spanish called Voluntarios Británicos e Irlandeses en la Gesta Bolivariana. So like the gesta is like the great deeds, the great acts. So it's British and Irish volunteers in the great feats of the time of Bolivar, basically, is how you would translate that, and sort of Bolivar mania. He spends years and years on this, researches every detail of this story. It's never been released as a commercial work, but a few hundred copies existed and were sent to libraries of note around the world. So you can find it and read it if you're interested in doing so. It's never been translated into English, which, it's got to be on somebody's to-do list, surely. And he's in his 80s by the time he completes this. He travels to Venezuela in the 1990s because he's friends with Rafael Caldera, who's the president of Venezuela at the time, who's also an academic and respects the work that's gone into this. So this very elderly Irishman is awarded by Caldera the Orden del Libertador, which is the order of the Liberator, first class, to go with his Chinese Distinguished Service Order first class, which he got from Chiang Kai-shek. Like the gongs from the regimes, wow. And he got, every gong you can get out of the British lot as well.
I'm sure.
He was a member of all of the societies. Died later that year. So he went to Venezuela, got his award, and that was kind of the last of his energy, really. Got home and died later that same year at the age of 87. What an extraordinary life. What an extraordinary series, like sequence of events to put together. And this is Eric Lambert.
Eric Lambert, we need to have a film made. I'm going to suggest later that there be a book written about somebody, but this is bigger than that. This needs to be a feature film about one of the great lives of the 20th century. It's of its time, isn't it? We say this occasionally. It comes up with people who are so of their time, and to have that much versatility and that much curiosity. Thank you, Sean, for bringing him into our world. That's pretty cool. Jeff, before we head off, I'll remind you and remind all of our audience, not that they need reminding, that Maurice Blackburn Lawyers are Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, and they have been the principal partner of The Final Word across season 18 and now season 19, which we're deep into. I suppose we're we're roughly the halfway mark of the season by months, because we tend to finish these, the next season. The 20th
early
season,
April.
I believe, will be the 20th season's the next one. We'll start in early April when the next county campaign begins. I saw the county dates the other day. I'm very excited about all of that. The first round of county cricket, which will begin over the Easter weekend. So, yes, anyway, I digress. Talking about Maurice Blackburn Lawyers and the great work they do on behalf of hardworking Australian people in a whole range of ways. Take, for instance, Deanne, who at just 3 months away from her family home and placed into state care. It was then as a ward of the West Australian state that Deanne endured severe abuse and neglect at the hands of adults who were responsible for her. She was forced to suffer silently through her formative years and into early adulthood. Deanne was unaware that there was anything that could be done about her horrific past experiences, but after learning about Maurice Blackburn's experience with institutional childhood abuse, she was presented with a range of options to seek compensation. In her case, that meant securing a lump sum compensation payment via common law claim against the state. And now in her 30s, Deanne's strength and confidence has been pivotal in her community advocacy work. And together with her loving partner, she has dedicated her life to fostering a safe and loving home with her 5 children. So again, we've talked a lot about what Maurice Blackburn do in, say, class action work or in super insurance, which
workplace.
Is a crucial part of the stories that we tell. Workplace issues too, but here with institutionalized childhood abuse, another crucial string to their bow at Maurice Blackburn. They've been in operation since 1919. So much of their work is on a no-win, no-fee basis, and we're always proud to be in association with them and the great work that they do. All the information for them is in the show notes. If you need legal support, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. We're back in a moment.
This is the final word. Story time. Number 254. Adam, you are back on the far side of the planet from me, which means that if you wanted to access something where I am, or I wanted to access something where you are, either of us or both of us may need a VPN. And if you're going to get one, it might as well be NordVPN because they're the best, they're the quickest, they're the most widespread. They are one of the few easy things to use on my phone where everything is so fucking difficult now. You try to use the simplest service and it's like, oh no, you need 16 layers of authentication to log into your parking account to pay $2.40 to park in this street for 20 minutes. No, you get your VPN, put on your phone, you get 10 devices and you're all set.
How's that been allowed to happen in Australia, where everywhere you go, you need to download a different app seemingly to park?
Yep.
It's, I don't want to go all old man yells at cloud, but there's got to be a better way, doesn't there?
And everybody wants your email address and everyone wants your phone number and everybody wants you to turn on notifications
No, can't be having it. I would say I got a bit of a response to my suggestions of impropriety in the Gladiators celebrity special.
Did you?
Christmas Day here.
Okay.
Wild agreement. How on earth did they give her a
fixed.
fucking ladder?
A ladder maybe not to get up. Isn't the whole point that you're supposed to climb up?
Yeah, you can't be given a ladder for the rope bit of the eliminator. It's just fucking farce. Anyway, Gladiators proper starts on BBC One this Saturday night. It's Winnie and Peggy's favourite show. They've been Peggy woke up at 3:30 this morning. I'll have you know, Jeff. She's still jet lagged. So I spent a lot of time playing hide and seek with Peggy this morning. That's fun. Anyway, and if you want to watch Gladiators too, that's a long way of saying if you want to watch Gladiators and you're in Australia, and why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to turn the clock back to John Alexander and Mike Whitney and Kimberly Joseph and so on? You can do that.
Was that your plan?
You can watch it on the BBC. Yes, Gladiator ready. Contender ready and all the rest of it. But yes, you can watch it. Challenger, that's right. I was like, what Challenger ready? And who knows, maybe Mike Whitney will give you $50 as well. Bit of a crossover.
Maybe if you eat this spider, he'll give you $50. Yeah. Maybe if you dip your head in this tank of motor oil. Yep.
Yeah. Don't miss out by getting a VPN, nordvpn.com/TFW. Discount there, 4 months. What is it again? It's like you buy the 12 months, you get 4 months free. It's a ridiculously generous offer.
I think you go. What happens is, because you can do it by the month and it's still cheap. It's like, I don't know, less than $5 Australian. And then if you do like a couple of years, like you do a 24-month, then it's substantially less than that. Plus you get the extra 4 months. So you end up with 28. Anyway, it's absurdly, it's well under $5 a month Australian. It's like €3, it's like £2 there and thereabouts. Yeah. Go and the link will tell you in your local currency, and you will think that is a very small amount of money to be able to watch whatever highlight clips I want to watch on whatever social media is going to tell me that it's geo-blocked in my area and can't be accessed. And you're like, oh, is it? What's your area? Because I'm pretty sure that with 165 countries on the app, I can be in whatever area you want me to be in. Let's dance, internet. Let's dance. Check them out. All right,
Jeff. My turn. My turn for an answer. And I better rattle through this. I'm mindful that this could get, although it is a pretty long answer with several diversions because it's fun. But you read out the clip. It's Sean Tolich, 840. He's been with us for a time. Thank you, Sean, for your continued support. It's in Aussie dollars, which won't be what my answer's about, but that's okay. Jeff, read the clip.
Sean says, I captained my country for the first part of its first successful era. My form fell away badly in my last 4 years. I finished on a high in the toughest of places. Okay.
And I realise now when reading the clue back that maybe it won't be who I thought it was. I thought the clue married up quite neatly with what I was about to do. But you know when you start an answer and you go, oh, that'll be that. You start writing it, you get to the end of the answer, you've invested a couple of hours of research into it. You're like, yeah, good. And you're like, actually, now I read it back at the very start again. Yep. There is a decent chance, but it'll be the answer anyway, because who we're about to talk about, I will not accuse Sean, therefore, of pleasure error, which was my instinct at the start. to get on the front foot and say that he got one of the numbers wrong. He actually meant 83, not 84. But anyway, that's fine. We'll tell another story for Sean another time. The story I'm going to tell today, though, is a belter, which relates to 830 instead of 840. The great story of John Goddard, who is the captain of a Windies team that made serious waves in what I would declare a great era for them in the early days of their Test existence. He had a 22 Test run as captain. So Goddard was Bajan. His family led one of the leading trading companies there. He's white, British background, went to a big school called the Lodge, born in 1919, which traditionally wasn't a great time to come into the world, but he seems to have avoided most of that. He made his first class debut in the January of 37 when he was still a teenager, playing for Barbados at Queen's Park. He was playing away for Barbados on the national team, and his first wicket was Clifford Roach, who made a couple of Test tons. So a good start there as an 18-year-old. Yep. He was an all-rounder, again, kind of his time when you think about West Indian cricket. He bowled medium pace, he bowled off breaks depending on the circumstances, and he was a very useful left-hander who batted in pretty much every spot on the list. He's a classic utility. He's like the footy cards in the 1990s. Andy Gowers underneath it, utility. Andy Gowers, of course, performing that utility role as the outstanding president of the Hawthorn Football Club. Unclear what he's doing in the war years from what I've read on him. But it would have been more interesting had he been in the Bahamas during the war years, because that's where the former King Edward VIII and Wallace Simpson were chilling, where they were deployed to be exiled, running Bahamas between 1940 and 1945. But Barbados
was that to stop them getting abducted by Germans, or was that to make it easier for Germans to abduct them?
It was to get them out of the way, because you might remember that he did have a fair bit to do with Hitler and co. pre-war. Not to say that he was a Nazi himself, but he definitely said and did things that which would suggest that there was a period of time when he was a Nazi sympathizer. So he was
more well disposed towards Nazis than you might be comfortable with while fighting a war against them.
Well, this was this is, to be fair, pre-war, but it's more when Hitler's on the rise and that type of thing. So he's well away in the Bahamas. But Barbados, World War II, first diversion. They were quite important. The Battle of the Caribbean ran for 4 years, from 1941 to 1945. The German U-boats tried to get in there. The Italian subs were involved as well. Basically, they were trying to fuck with the US supply lines. And
are you talking about sandwiches, or are you talking about ships at that point?
Yes, ships, absolutely.
The Italian subs.
The Italian subs, not the footlongs, not the Jason Craziers. No, a link to now in a way like the Venezuela oil was an important strategic component to all of this. So there was a couple of sinkings of ships, but broadly speaking, they forced out the bad guys and they protected that part of the Caribbean, which of course is so close to the US. Anyway, back to Goddard. During the war, when I looked at his cricket, he played quite a bit. It's when his career took off. He had a massive purple patch between 42 and 46, only 12 first-class games, but in that averaged 68 and made 500s, including a career best of 218 not out for Barbados when he added 502 with Frank Worrell for the fourth wicket, in a sign of what would be to come with he and Worrell playing an important role in the same national team. Indeed, a curiosity here is that in a career that runs for 21 years, they were the only 5 first-class hundreds he made in that period of time through the majority of World War II, 1942 to 1946. And he was captaining Barbados by the end of the war, which again was a sign of things to come, because when he's picked in the Test team in 1948, gets a debut when England tour, he plays all 4 Test matches and he's the captain by the third and the fourth. As a Test player, it's his bowling that's more noteworthy, and we'll come to that in a sec. But there's 2 draws to begin the series: one in Barbados, his home ground, and one in Trinidad, and that includes Andy Gantome's 112. Jeff,
which was
referred to plenty over the years. The Gantome 112 on Test debut. So, and of course, never to play again, having made that century. And for the longest time, Jeff, he was the man with the highest unrestricted batting average before Curtis Patterson came along.
And people will say, they were in years to come, they'll say, oh, they were there. They were there when Curtis Patterson made 114 not out at Manuka Oval to combine with whatever it was that he made at the Gabba. the week before that got him that
70 odd. I think didn't he get a 70 odd in the first test? And,
and there's one dismissal in there as well, isn't there? There's three innings and one. I think there's only 2 innings. Yeah. It's only 2 innings. So it's whatever.
I know.
100.
Yeah, I was there for 30. All of his Test career, and so were you. We were both there for both of those. I reckon there's a chance he'll fly again. We'll see. But yeah, because it's post-war and it's the Windies' first series after the war. A whole bunch of debuts. Some debuts in this series: Walcott, Weeks, and Jim Laker. So handy names that are entering the Test game in this series in the Caribbean. Jim Laker, a 7-for on debut. Another one of the debuts, which jumped out at me off the page, was a bloke by the initials of R.J. Christiani, who made a debut at Barbados and got 99. Now I'm like, oh, hello, look at that. Rob Christiani. Now, what does that remind you of? Rhetorical question. What does it remind me of? Bob Cristofani. So there's Rob Christiani, and I'm thinking straight away, I'm like, well, what about Bob Cristofani? Not the same name, but pretty similar and a similar era. A reminder of what Cristofani did. He played in the victory tests in 1945, a guy I've always been interested in. He played 14 of his 18 first-class games for the Australian services in that tour in 1945, just as the war was ending. There's that famous final day, final session win at Lord's where he takes 5 for 49. And I'm fairly certain from a book that I read a number of years ago about Clem Attlee that this was the afternoon when Churchill called the election. So Churchill's calling the election at the same time that Cristofani is running through England on the final day, and that's the election where Clement Attlee is elected as the Prime Minister in the immediate post-war era. And Cristofani also makes 110 not out, batting at number 8 in that series against that English services team. So he's a guy who you would expect, taking fifers and making hundreds there, that he would go on and probably play big-time cricket after the war. Doesn't really happen. Couple of Shield games for New South Wales, played a couple before the war, and then back to England. He's the pro at Accrington, which, of course, is best known for Bumble. I wonder, can Pat Rogers write a book on him, on Bob Cristofani? It's not quite his sweet spot. We spoke to Pat on the story of Sid Emery, which is the most recent ep in our feed, which was an enormous amount of fun the other day, as I described it in the feed. Australia's probable ADHD pre-war leg spinner, Sid Emery, which we both came to the same conclusion independently of each other, that he's almost certainly had that part of his neurological makeup. But yeah, in Cristofani's case, he had that interesting brief career as a representative cricketer. But that diversion back to Rob Christiani, 99 on Test debut. How often could have that happened? Well, I can tell you, Jeff, twice. There's stories of a Guyanese cricketer, Christiani. He walked off the field in tears, and there were reports in the paper of the whole Guyana nation reduced to tears when the leg before decision was given and the finger went up. So the only other player in Test history to get a 99 on debut was Arthur Chipperfield in 1934 at Notts, the first Test of that series, and a crucial innings at that, 99, top scoring. He went to lunch on that score, and straight after lunch, third ball after it, he was caught behind from the bowling of Ken Farnes. So he batted 200 minutes for 99 on Test debut, one short of becoming one of those men on that list that we've spoken about many times, which was added to about this time last year by Josh Inglis. There are 21 men who've made 100 on debut, and Arthur Chipperfield was the closest to it without reaching it. But I can tell you that he did get a Test century. In fact, both men got a century each. Both Christiani and Chipperfield got one Test century apiece.
Well, that's a relief.
Anyway, back to Goddard again, and that 1947-48 series. There were similar kind of draws. Goddard didn't really do an awful lot. Even so, he's made captain for the Georgetown Test match because Headley is injured. Headley, who, of course, played that brief bit of Test cricket after the war, injured, and he was done at that point. And then they stuffed them. They bowl out England for 111. Goddard, our man here, as the new captain, takes 5 for 31, including the top 3, including the great Len Hutton, in a famous West Indian win. And the fourth Test match, they beat the visitors by 10 wickets, with Goddard opening the batting and making 46 not out in the chase. So he played a role with ball and bat as captain, and they've defeated England 2-0. That's the second time they beat England in a series. The previous was in 1934-35. So a major achievement in West Indian cricket history. And of course, that means that Goddard's going to be the captain ongoing. He's had such a good start to his career. We'll skip over the next series and go back to 1950 because that's when they play England next. That's that seismic series where Worrell makes 539 runs. Alf Valentine takes 33 wickets and they're beaten by England in the first tests by 202 runs at Old Trafford. And then they absolutely annihilate England after that by 326 runs at Lord's, by 10 wickets at Trent Bridge, and then by an innings and 56 runs at the Oval. That's where Walcott makes his 168 and Ramadan picks up 11 wickets at Lord's. Worrell, the 261 at Trent Bridge, and then Worrell again, 138 at the Oval in that gigantic series for the man who would go on to be such a great captain of the West Indies. And also at the Oval in that final test match, it's the captain Goddard who picks up 4 for 25 from 17.4 overs to set up the win, making England follow on, and contributes with the bat as well, adding 58 not out. So he's leading the team to victories. He's playing a role with ball and bat. The Wisden Cricketers Almanac describe his captaincy there as one where the players had utmost faith in him. Here, there can be no question that the flourishing state of cricket in the Caribbean today is partly due to his shrewdness and leadership. So, yeah, but he's the man of West Indian cricket at this moment in time. In the middle of all this, he leads them to India in a grueling series in 48-49. It shows they're made of tough stuff. They win 1-0. It's the fourth match where they win by an innings and plenty to go with the 4 draws. And yeah, Goddard with the golden touch. He won all 5 tosses in that series, and he elected to bat all 5 times as well. I was trying to think, is there any other times in cricket history where that's happened? And I'm like, hang on, didn't it happen to Shubman Gill? Didn't he lose all 5 tosses to Ben Stokes and then Ollie Pope during the series last year? That rings a bell.
I think so, because he had a much longer streak than 5 as well across some ODIs, and it ended up in the teens somewhere. Didn't quite hit 20, probably the case. Far off.
Yeah, it's probably the case that Goddard and Gill share that in common as the 2 test captains in a 5-test series who've lost all 5 of them. Anyway, Wisden said of him of that trip, the West Indian team found great inspiration in the leadership of Goddard, whose sound judgment and circumspection were attributes that counted so much for the success of the tour. A talented player, an expert tactician, he commanded the respect of his men and got the best out of them. So he averaged 48 with the bat and 39 with the ball and played his role in both disciplines. So after that series in England that follows in 1950, he's led them for 11 test matches. They've won 6 times, only 1 loss and 3 big series wins, 2 against England and 1 away against India. And also in England, how's this? Also in England, I love the miscellaneous tab on Cricket Archive. It is my special place. In his miscellaneous tab, you will find a game he played in 1950 for the Father Marriott 11, the CS Marriott 11. Father Marriott raised a team in his name to play against old Alanians at the ground they have at Dulwich Common to this day. So right in my kind of cricket cradle, because our games for ODB, which I mentioned our nets earlier, we play at Elaine's. You have Jeff at Elaine's Cricket Club, and old Alanians, or the Elaine School is where I enjoyed some success playing for MCC a couple of years ago. So always got a soft spot for that part of London. But in this game, Goddard made 34 before being bowled by Trevor Bailey. I love that, like, a test player is playing in like what looks to be a Sunday game that's been raised in Marriott's name, but a test all-rounder in Trevor Bailey is playing for the Oppo. So more of that, please. I love that kind of thing. Goddard's awarded an OBE in 1951 for services to Barbados, that really high standard that he's setting. But unfortunately, there is a drop-off. In 1951-52, they're hammered 4-1 in Australia. So the next major series, they're also defeated 1-0 in New Zealand. So it's thoroughly a misadventure for them. Now, he stands down as captain. He did okay personally across the test matches, averaging 26 with the bat and 32 with the ball, but the team's changing. There's a blow-up at Melbourne, which is the test we've talked about before, where Australia win by a solitary wicket. It's a thriller, where there are these divisions with Jeff Stollmeyer, who goes on to become the captain after Goddard. There's such a blow-up out there that Sonny Ramadan leaves the field in the final session of play when they're trying to work out who's going to bowl. He's bowled for hours by this point, but, Stollmeyer later says that Goddard is given too much credit for 1950 and their famous win in England. So it's all a bit nasty, and it's all that sort of inter-island stuff that comes back time and again in the politics of Caribbean cricket. So anyway, Stollmeyer, becomes the captain at the end of that trip in New Zealand. They play in New Zealand after Australia. And Gotti, barely plays. He's happy to virtually stand aside. But in 1956 or 55-56, when they go back to New Zealand, Stollmeyer's not touring. So Goddard comes back as the player manager, and it works. He gets 83 not out, which is his highest score in Test cricket. That's made at Christchurch. And the Windies win the series 3-0. So there's some redemption there.
Captain coach. He's playing for Yarrawonga.
Yeah,
he's gone up Bush League.
Well, it's more playing coach more than captain coach. There is a captain, but it's not him. But he's at least got a position of authority as player manager in a series, where they go back to that part of the world and win in New Zealand. And he's given the captaincy for the 1957 trip to England. But that's where that England team really clicked. That's a great England side. They lose 3-0 across 5 Test matches. We've told the story before, Jeff, of what happens at Birmingham with Ramadan, where England finally click. And it's, some of the greats of English cricket, that massive partnership with Cowdrey and May. Cowdrey and May? I think it's Cowdrey and May. I'm pretty sure it is. I know Cowdrey's involved. Maybe it's not May. I think it is. Anyway, if I'm wrong, if my recollection
sounds
is
plausible,
faulty,
I believe you.
And someone will surely pull me up on it. We did that a fair bit in calling the shots, because that's the Test match where Test match special started, the first one of 1957. Anyway, Goddard's captain of the series for the Windies. He's not really contributing, and that's basically it for him. But he's stubborn. I mean, I say he's not contributing. They would have lost 5-0 if not for him. He takes significant time out of the first Test match and the third Test match to make sure they get to safe harbour with draws, get 61 in 215 minutes down the list in the third Test match. So, that's something. It's not nothing that they're 3-0 losers and not 5-0 losers, and that's the kind of pride that he had in his performance and that of the team. That's him done as captain. 22 times he led the Windies for 8 wins, 7 losses, 7 draws, so it deteriorates towards the end, but a great start to it with 3 outstanding victories for the Windies. 27 Test matches he played all up for a 31 batting average and took 33 useful wickets at 32. Did a job, and lots of catches close in where he often fielded at silly point to the spinners. And he spent a lot of his life on the Barbados board after that, stayed close to the game. Sadly, he died on a tour as well. He was invited to the Bicentenary tour in 1987 at Lord's for the MCC, and he collapsed dead at age 68. But he played a big hand in an important and successful era, a fine leader of the West Indies in the 1950s. John Goddard. And obviously I'm wrong. I was going to say at the end here that 84 was probably 83 and Pledger era, but I'm sure it's something else for Sean. But I hope he's enjoyed learning about a great leader in the West Indian game and in the history of West Indian cricket.
Well, above everything there, I respect the commitment to leave while on tour. That shows you really want it. If you're willing to die on tour, like Laurie Nash's dad dying at the footy, after playing so many games for Collingwood. Died at a Collingwood game as an old man. Like Billy Murdoch, who, as they said at the time, his heart exploded when watching a Test match at the MCG. I'm not sure whether his heart literally exploded, but a giant of a man who died there in the members at Melbourne. It's maybe putting a little bit of exaggeration on it that doesn't need to be there. But we should have our second break. Before we do that, I will have a word, Adam, for Zeus, because I'm sleepy. I'm going to go to sleep after this, and I'm going to strap. I'm not going to strap. You don't need to strap it. Why do we say strap it? Only because Adam has poisoned my mind with this idea of strapping. I'm going to adhere the little adhesive gel pad that sticks to Zeus device underneath the chin, and then it gets your tongue out the way of your airway, and it makes you very likely to stop snoring. If you snore, if you annoy the person next to you by snoring, try this out. We had the numbers come through the other day. A lot of people have picked up one of these over the last couple of months, and why not? It's a money-back guarantee. You get 5% off anyway. So, if it doesn't work for you, you just let them know, and they'll give you your coin back. And you have literally nothing to lose. You are either going to stop snoring or you're going to continue on the way you were before with the same amount of money in your pocket. Get into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of tongue content on the net. I'm appreciative of this. But this is the tongue content that's going to directly benefit your life. And I just want to say again that this has gone great guns. Thank you to our audience for so embracing Zeus. I think that's a really cool thing when we work with a brand that clearly strikes a chord, and this has done that. So be part of it. Get your 5% discount. Why not, as you say, Jeff? And if you're someone who snores or someone who does, I was talking to someone the other day who said that they were laying next to someone who was snoring. I'm like, well, here's your next gift for them, or maybe a gift for yourself by giving it to them.
Yeah.
TFW 2025 is currently the discount code. That will probably change, but at the moment, you can find it in the show notes. Click the link and make sure that you get a discount. And make sure that in 2026 that you sleep refreshed. Make it your New Year's resolution. I am desperately trying to sleep better and get more sleep, for I know I've got the Edinburgh thing coming up in May, cricket season coming up. I'm trying to treat my body like a temple for a time. Sleep is front and center of that. It should be for you as well. And Zeus can help you along the way if you are a snorer. All right, we'll take a breather and we'll return in a moment.
It's the final word. It's story time number 254. We've got Michael Gormley, not Michael Gormless. He is Gormley. He is full of Gorm. $3.60 AUD is the amount of pledge. What's the clue, Adam?
Yes, so we've done 2 long answers and we've got two slightly shorter ones now. If you're wondering why we're only getting into the second half of the show, over an hour into it, you won't be here all day. It's all good. Apologies, Adam, as I know you like the guessing game. Who told you that, Michael? But I will tell you exactly what this refers to. Thank you. We far appreciate far rather that. And over in Afghanistan versus the Windies in the World Cup, which sparked debate on my cricket WhatsApp group. We all have a cricket WhatsApp group. Asmatullah bowled an over that went for 36. My friend Charlie stated that the first ball went for 16. I said it went for 6 and the second ball went for 10. Then sparked a debate about whether the runs scored through illegal deliveries are appended to the legal ball before or after the wide or no ball. The only way we have agreed to settle this debate is to ask you guys for this question. How many runs did the first ball of Asmatullah's over go for? Wow, philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I've not read the clue till now, so I'll have to give me a moment to let this rattle around in my head. You're going to have to think about it. Where are you at?
I'm going to walk you through what happened first of all, but before I do that, I'm going to say, Michael, get Charlie on the phone and tell him he's wrong. You're in the good corner here. Now, Asmatullah, I think I could say for both of us, Adam, our favourite Afghanistan player. What a bowler,
big time.
And his work with the bat and the bright eyes, the way his eyes gleam in his head when he comes into bowl, bowled the spell of his life in 2023 before Glenn Maxwell stole the show and stole the game, and then got this treatment 2024 at Gros Islet in St. Lucia. And I should know what happened in this game, Adam, because I was calling this one, doing that World Cup over there.
It doesn't always work that way. We've had answers where I've clearly been on commentary for it, and I have no recollection of what I'm describing. So we'll see how you go here.
I do remember, now that my memory's been jogged, I do remember what happened. So this was Nicky Puran was batting, who was having a good night. I think he almost made 100. He was 90-odd not out, Nicholas Puran, by the end of the night, and he pounded them. So first ball of the over, Adam, is a top-edge slog across the line, carries deep third for 6. Pretty rude start to the over, right? I think Matt Roller did that daily show with me. I think that might have been the one where it started raining halfway through and we had to run inside and film the rest of it indoors. So the first ball of the over's gone for 6, right? The second ball, Nicholas Puran's pulled it for 4 and it's an overstep. So no ball plus 4. Third ball tries to bump him. The bouncer goes over the keeper 5 wides. So we've had a 6, 5 no balls, or, no ball plus 4, and we've had 5 wides, right? So we've had one legal delivery so far.
16 runs in one legal delivery. Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Still a free hit at this point. At this point, Asmatullah bowls a dot ball, nails a good Yorker, and it's the second ball of the over, legally.
Yep.
Third legal delivery on the pads, clips the pad, goes away for 4 leg buys. So it counts as a delivery, but more extras. Then there's 4 slashed away off the outside edge, and then Nicholas Puran finds his range for the last 2 balls, 2 sixes, slots 1 over mid-wicket, slots 1 straight. So the over has gone 6, 5 no balls, 5 wides, dot ball, 4 leg buys, 4, 6, 6. It is a very expensive, very difficult over. But the question is...
So 36 from the
36.
over.
Yes.
32 from the bowler, because if the leg buys aren't credited to the bowler, which is at least helpful for his pride, I guess.
Yes, exactly. And whatever it is off the bat, it's 4, 9, 10. 10 of them are in extras and 26 off the bat. Right? Does that make sense with the 6 and the 4 and the 6?
Yeah, so one no ball, 5. Yeah. 26 off the bat and 10 extras. That's right.
Right. Now, we're being asked where they get attached. Like, what delivery do they get attached to? And I think the key thing here in considering this, Michael, is that they don't strictly get attached to either delivery because they're an unsuccessful attempt to bowl a delivery. So, but I understand why this gets confusing. So if the first, and you'll know this because you do this all the time on commentary, Adam, everybody loves the effectively 102 for 2, whatever it is, in the third innings of a test match. Love and effectively. If the first ball of the over,
I love it effectively as much as I love reminding people that there's a square all the way across the oval, because I know it annoys certain people, so I make a point of saying, gee, it gathers speed across the square here at the oval, pitches all the way across.
Right. Now, if say the first ball of the over is a no ball and it's hit for 6, and then the second ball of the over is a legal ball and it's hit for 6, you would say effectively they're 13 off one ball. But that doesn't mean they actually scored 13 off one ball. They haven't scored. That doesn't get put down in the scorebook as 13 off one ball. It's just that only one successful ball has been bowled in the over. So, if in this case, when the first ball of the over is 6, right? So you're having an argument as to whether the extra runs from the second ball, the no ball 4, and then the extra runs from the third ball, the 5 wides, should be attached to the 6 that comes from the first ball of the over. The 6 that comes from the first ball of the over is completed after it's been signalled. So once that ball's gone into the crowd and the umpire signalled it, that passage of play is complete. That now lives in the past.
I think if you wanted to be cute, you could say it lives with the dot, the second legal ball. But like even that, I wouldn't really. I wouldn't ever say it that way. Like I would never say. I might say there's been this many runs scored from one legal delivery, but I wouldn't you're right. I wouldn't claim that it's been made from that delivery. I might be more inclined to say if the second ball went for 4, I may say that was the dot. Remember that it went.
Yes.
I might go, well, there have been effectively 14 runs scored from the second ball. I may say that, but I would never claim that there were literally 14 runs scored from it. If you know what I mean, it would just be language.
I think you'd always qualify and say from 2 legal deliveries. And when you say legal, this is the key. This is the thing that actually counts, because the extras go in the scorebook as an attempt to bowl the next legal delivery. And if that attempt fails, then the penalty goes down in the scorebook, but the attempt hasn't been completed. And it's only once the attempt is completed that that ball is marked down as being, say, over 56.3. That 0.3 can only get marked down once that third ball has been legally delivered. So this is why dead balls are not recorded in the scorebook. If the umpire waves the arms below the waist, attempted man-cat or whatever it might be, they'll call that a dead ball. That's not recorded as a delivery that's been bowled. That then has to be re-bowled, but it's not recorded as an illegal delivery that in the way that a no ball or a wide would be. A delivered ball is live, and if it's illegal, it's still a live ball, so it's recorded as an attempt to bowl over 56.3, but not a successful one. And so 56.3 will repeat until it's bowled successfully, right? Does that tally with how you would see it?
Yeah, I think everything you're saying is how I think that's all. Yeah, I don't think there's any other real way of doing it than what you're saying. I think you got it basically. Yeah,
right. So you have discrete passages of play that have to get concluded before. This is why it was so interesting with the Bairstow stumping thing, where it's like the passage of play has only concluded if both of the teams are behaving as if it's concluded, and one of them hasn't in that case, and one of them has, and so hence all of the stuff about that.
So the quirky ones are running out the non-striker, or indeed running out the striker. Remember, this is that rarity and oddity, very, very, very rare and oddity, where you can theoretically run out the striker by throwing the stumps down from the back you follow, the back we've talked about this in the show. But in fact, didn't they change the law recently? You can't do that anymore. I think it has happened a couple of times ever, where a striker has been run out by the stumps being thrown down by the bowler. It's crazy, and it doesn't seem. I've never seen it, but allegedly that's a mode of dismissal that's available to a fielding team to run out the striker if they are out of their crease when facing up. Mental stuff.
And that's a more interesting one to say which ball was that batter dismissed from, because they're not dismissed from a ball. There's no ball that's bowled in order to dismiss a run out of the non-striker, for instance. So Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the way that your friends has laid it out, Michael, where they've said it should belong to the earlier ball that's already been bowled. Obviously, that would mean that if there are extras from the first attempt to bowl a ball in the over, then they would have to belong to a different bowler at the end of the previous over, which wouldn't make any sense. So it can't work that way because the ball that's already been bowled is a completed action. That's already come to the end of its life in the game of cricket, and whatever happens afterwards is the attempt to complete the subsequent action. And sometimes that attempt can fail, and the failed attempt might be the end of an innings because it might mean that you've now chased the score that you need to chase, and so the subsequent attempt to complete the action will never actually be attempted because the penalty's already been applied. But in this case, you have to have the opportunity to attempt to complete the action, and in doing so, you may or may not complete it, I suppose. It raises one interesting question I want to put to you, Adam, before I wrap up this answer, which is this. Which is this.
I think you've answered it comprehensively if you want to wrap it up now, but go ahead.
Imagine like the John Hastings over we saw the 17 baller the other week. We've all seen them. I've certainly bowled them. What happens now if you're in a run chase? Fine. Eventually, at some point, you will concede enough runs to lose the game and it will be over. What happens if someone just has the yips so bad that they cannot complete the over? Now, if it were a test match, you could eventually declare if somebody's like conceded 600 in extras and you're like 0 for 600 and you go, cool, that's enough, call them in, we'll declare, right? The innings can end then. But if you're bowling first in a limited overs game and a player literally bowls, say, 100 deliveries in a row that are all wides and cannot land it on the pitch, there's no way to get out of that. Like, cricket has no recourse in the laws. And I've seen it happen, like I said, it's in social cricket where umpires will get very creative in interpreting what is happening in front of them. You know, they'll obviously get much more lenient. They'll stop calling anything that basically lands on the pitch, even if it's 2 meters down the leg side. They'll call it a delivery. They'll find ways to do it. An umpire could agree that after, say, the player's bowled for long enough that they're now injured and that they need to retire and they can't complete the over. Or they could call you they could call you for beamers and pull you out of the attack and just tell you to bowl over the other guy's head a couple of times and they can drag you from the attack. But if neither of those things happen, there's literally no way for a player to stop bowling. In theory, they just have to bowl forever, like eternally. Until you run out of the allotted time for the match to be played in, and then it's a no result, presumably, because the other team hasn't batted.
To be so shit that you have to bowl for eternity, it's like you're in purgatory. You're in cricketing purgatory.
I'd
love to be the batting captain.
I'd
love to be the batting captain. I'm like, just fucking let him bowl all day. I don't care. We'll rack him up. I don't care. I suppose bad light might intervene as well. That might be the other thing. The game might cease because bad light would intervene, and thus. But
that's what I'm saying. Eventually, you can't win as the batting captain.
There'd be an anchor where the batting team would need to say, are you permitted to declare in a limited overs international?
No, you're not allowed. You can retire. You can retire out.
Retire your innings out. Yeah, that's what you need to do. Because let's say there is a scenario, I wonder whether it's happened. You always wonder these things. Has there been an instance where a team who desperately needs to win the game, rain's coming, desperately need to win, like maybe it's tournament style, it's a game where they need to win to make the semis or something, and they know there's only going to be sort of 3 hours of cricket, but they're batting first, and they've got a certain number of runs, but they're not permitted to declare, where they just retire out the remainder of their batters so that their innings automatically ends and they're effectively all out. Well, they are all out because their batters have all been retired out. That's what I put to my audience. Has that ever happened in a limited overs game where maybe you are permitted to declare? I've just never thought about it before. Are you allowed to declare your innings closed in a T20?
You can't declare.
Probably not.
No.
Right.
There's no provision to declare an innings.
Jeff, in the interest of me getting my answer in before I have to declare this episode closed, I'm going to say thank you, Michael, $3.60 AUD, and gallop along to my second one today, which is for Lara Killick. We love Lara. Goodness me, she's done a power of work working with our audience and community over the years, and at the moment traveling the world on a sabbatical of sorts and doing great work the Cricket Without Borders, and I mean, what a great human being, and a lover of all of the things that we love on the show here, including telling obscure stories about the history of the game. We will do a version of that, and I'll explain why it's a version of that in a moment. 6'10" in the USD, for that's where she dwells. Well, was until recently. She is still there, but traveling right now. Lara Killick, read me the clue, Jeff, and I'll tell you why we're not doing it.
Okay. The clue originally was this: a fox, a muppet, a founding father, and myself walk into the Dun Cow after a busy day playing sport in the community. One of us stands out in the crowd. And then I will say very briefly, we were pretty pleased with ourselves at one point, Adam. We were spitballing this around and going, well, herself has got to be Lara. It's got to be Brian Lara.
Yep.
The founding father has got to be Adams. That's Jimmy Adams.
Yep.
A Muppet's got to be Big Bird. That's Joel Garner. And a fox would have to be Phil Simmons, who played for Leicestershire. When were they all in the same place? And they never were. There was nothing.
No.
It just didn't work. We thought we nailed it. And then she said, it would have been... I don't want you to tell this story. Tell something else.
Yeah, it would have been a great answer. The fox refers to Foxy Fowler, for what it's worth. It has to do with the MCCU and the Centres of Excellence.
Is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Or?
Could be, yeah. But no, Lara insisted that I don't worry about that more esoteric answer in favour of going back to something that came up in her previous pledge. So her previous pledge was 27, and I don't remember what we did exactly, but at some point we have done a list of numbers. No, that's what... I don't know what
about how many times Surrey had won or claimed to
Surrey
have won
championships.
the championship.
No, that's it. Spot on. So we did that. But she's like, her actual reason for that wasn't that at all. It was to do with her counting up the number of brothers that have played for Surrey. I'm like, oh, that's quite cool. But we have done a version of this for another county. We did it for Glamorgan. We did it for Middlesex, I reckon, as well, Jeff. Like we have done this type of answer before, right? But we'd never done it with Surrey. But of course, Matt May being Matt May, he had compiled a list of Surrey brothers. And Lara, having gone through scorecards,
they sound like a supporters group. The Surrey Bros. Here they come. They've all got their gilets on. They've all got their tall coffees.
Yeah,
they're going to the Cotswolds on the weekend, but they're here for here for Thursday and Friday.
Look, who's to judge? Who's to say that I can easily see a world where Rach and I move to Surrey one day, but we're very happy.
Maybe you're a Surrey bro. Maybe you are a Surrey bro now. Maybe it's happened.
Well, it is very beautiful there. Where are we? So no, but Matt's list had up to 33 groups of brothers. Some of them he can't verify 100%, but up to 33. So I just went to the list and thought, well, let's look at some of the names here. Some great names, some obvious names: Bedses, Baddies, Abels, Bicknells, Hollyoaks, Murters. I didn't know that Tim Murter had a brother that played for Surrey as well. Poolies, Wards, Ward being of the Ian variety of commentary latterly, but played 5 test matches for England. But I went with a nice oddity here. There are 2 consecutive generations of Butcher brothers who played for Surrey. And this is
Butcher
fun.
Boys.
This is fun. I won't keep you long here, Jeff, but this is fun. So Alan Butcher and Mark Butcher, we've interviewed Mark at enormous length in 2021 when we did a 2.5 hour
a lot of it was about his dad and his relationship with his dad and all the rest of it.
Yeah, because Alan Butcher, long career at Surrey, then captain Glamorgan, then coached Surrey, coached Zimbabwe, very active even now on social media, involved in the game for a long stretch of time. I've commentated with Alan before. And of course, I've worked with Butch. We've both worked with Butch. What a great man he is. So we know the Alan story. We know the Mark story. And we've told Alan's story on Storytime. We've told Mark's story through the podcast. What about their brothers? If you're a more recent listener to The Final Word, our interview with Butch is worth it alone for talking about what happened before his masterful 173 not out to win the Leeds Ashes Test of 01, where his dad played a huge role in getting him hot to trot to play that test match. But anyway, have a listen. You can do that on your own time. Now, Martin Butcher, who's Alan's brother, won first-class game, did not bat, 1 catch, 1 over, none for 2. I'm like, I have to learn more. Ooh. I must read more on this. So 1982, he was a right-handed batter, got his chance to play for Surrey with his brother against Oxford University at the Park, so a university fixture between the 10th and 12th of June. Surrey bat first and get 345 for 5 declared. Martin was carded at 9, therefore did not bat. Alan, big brother, gets 10. His opening partner, Graham Selvey Clinton, no relation to Mike Selvey, you better believe I looked, got 172. Indeed. And then down the list, making 52. Remember, this is 1982 as a game. only a few months after the 1981 Jackman affair. Robin Jackman, the man of a million circuits, as Dan Bredig once dubbed him many years ago, the late Robin Jackman, the great Robin Jackman, made 52 down the list. So a couple of great Surrey names in all of this. Oxford University, all at 272. Martin doesn't get a trundle. Then Surrey, the second time, 261 for one and declared to set the game up. Allen, 131, so his big brother's got 100. But again, Martin doesn't get to backs. He's batting so far down the list. In the end, they don't bowl out Oxford the second time. They're 187 for 5 when they shake hands. But before they shook hands, they found time to use an eighth bowler. It was Martin, and he bowled his one over in the game, so he didn't get a TFC in his only first-class game. None for 2 from the one over. So,
am I getting the sense here, Adam? Am I getting the sense that he was a bit shit and he was making up the numbers? Like, what's happening here? What are they? Why are they?
I don't know. A university game. It's hard to know for sure.
Just like, we're a bit short. We need to pull someone in. Oh yeah, my brother can do it. Is it like that? Feels like that.
Pretty impressive family. I'd be surprised if it were that. I'd be more inclined to think that this was his one chance and just didn't get much of a go. And
not to say he wasn't a decent cricketer. He must have been a decent enough cricketer at whatever level it is he was playing. But to come in to bat that low down the order and then not get bowled suggests that they were like, oh well, we just need, we're a bit short this weekend.
You know what I'll do? I'll find out. Maybe should have done this before doing the answer. I'll ask Alan what the go was. I'm sure he'll tell me. Now, the other brother, I would say about
Alan,
Martin, though.
Was your brother shit or was he actually pretty good?
Well, one more first-class captain either of us have got, that's for sure. So, credit where it's due. You got to get him. You got to earn him. So, so we'll learn more about Martin perhaps for a later date. Gary is the brother of Mark. Now, more going on here. Gary started playing for Glamorgan, not Surrey, because as the younger brother, he was in Wales because Alan was the captain of Glamorgan. So when he started his career, he played for Glamorgan, which is a nice little quirk. He debuted in 1994. He was a right-handed all-rounder. He made a century, only one of them, against, nice link here, Oxford University, which ties back.
Then he loved a day out against Oxford, the Butchers. Family day. Let's have family day. Everybody come and have a game against Oxford University.
Well, it does mean that both he and his uncle Alan both got hundreds against Oxford Uni in first-class cricket. Alan probably got more than one. Mark probably got one too. He did eventually finish his relatively brief first-class career in 1999, a 53-game career. He finished it with Mark, his older brother, at Surrey. But they played against each other first. In 1997, in a one-day game, Glamorgan played Surrey. It's before he came over. Gary made 6. He may have faced his bro, but I don't think he did. Interestingly, Mark did bowl. He took none for 11, but probably didn't bowl at the time that Gary was batting based on the scorecard I was looking at. Then Mark made 11 in a team that featured it being a 1997 game and being a one-day game. Of course, it featured both the Hollyoaks as well. So both the Hollyoaks are playing for Surrey, that being the summer of the Hollyoaks playing for England, and the story of Ben that we've told before, that masterful performance on his one-day debut at Lords that we went through a couple of years ago. Surrey win the game. They chased down 243. Gary took 1 for 49 from just 5 overs, but he did get Ali Brown out, and that's not for nothing. Ali Brown, the superstar of Surrey at that time, or one of many of them. Ali Brown, who had that record-breaking 262, which for a long time was the highest score in list day cricket. And we have Ali, who works with us on our Surrey stream occasionally, and always nice to hear about that great era of Surrey cricket. But what about this? So we've got the two brothers playing. What about the generations coming together? Well, for that, I'll take you to 1991. What a year. I mentioned Andy Gowers before, premiership player in 91. Mark, at age 19, on the way through at Surrey, plays against Alan, who's at Glamorgan, when Surrey play Glamorgan at the Oval in another Sunday League game. So it's father versus son. We talk about the Chandiballs. It happened with the Butchers. Mark, 19 years of age, playing against his old man. Glamorgan bat first and get 225. Alan gets 39, out to Ian Gregg, Tony Gregg's brother. And then Mark
he played against his brother and he played against his dad in professional cricket. Yeah. 6 years apart. So Glamorgan get 225. Mark opened the bowling. So we think of Mark Butcher as this beautiful, elegant left-handed batsman. He was a useful medium pacer, very useful medium pacer. But at the start of his professional journey, he was batting 9 in this game and opening the bowl. Only bowled 3 overs, none for 16, and Alan batted 4. So they didn't face off against each other, sadly. It wasn't son bowling to father, not quite anyway.
Surrey fell 3 runs short, which would have meant it was a famous victory because Glamorgan don't win at the Oval too often. So a big win for Alan's team that he was leading. But Mark Butcher, down at number 9, nearly snatched it for Surrey. They fell, I think, 15 runs short or something like that. Butch got 48 not out in a hurry down at number 9 in a sign of things to come. So they'd already had seen off Graham Thorpe and Alex Stewart by that stage. And it was Mark Butcher all the way down and couldn't quite do it. But I love the fact that, they father versus son here to round off this answer about brothers and family. I'm sure Lara will remember it. I'm sure she was probably there. I'm sure she will love it. And that's the answer we've got for Lara today for her unrelated number, 610 USD. But we love Lara and great to have her back on the show.
I will tell you what Mark Butcher didn't do. He never made 100 against Oxford University because he only played them once.
Good.
Made 36.
And that was that.
That was that.
Oh, that's good.
That was that.
That's good. Beautiful
stuff. Just like his uncle, only played Oxford Uni once. Classic. Did not want it enough. A classic trait of the Butcher cricketing family.
Please,
okay, that's it. That's enough.
Please remind me, if I forget to do it, please someone remind me to follow up with both Mark and Alan. Again, if I had a bit more time, I might have done it before the answer, but I'll report back. I'll speak to both of them, and I'm sure they'll remember, and I'm sure we'll be able to give a bit more detail to that answer for Lara at some stage. Thank you to everybody who works with us on the show. Everyone who's a patron. You can win the beer. Jeff, we didn't do the beer.
Didn't do the beer. I was just about to tell you that, and I'm going to do it now. All right, this is good. This is really going to test the faithful. If you want your case of Stomping Ground Final Word Pale Ale, because we just checked and they've got a handful left. So the next few people on the list will get that. If you're after that, you might get something else, but that's fine. It'll all be delicious. I enjoyed a couple today. Only this afternoon while preparing my answers for story time. The winners that I have pulled off the list at random today are David Salter and Jeremy Coutinho, spelt Brazilian style. Now, I don't know if that's a real name or if that's a Brazilianized name because we do like making some of our listeners' names Brazilian. If you are either of those people and you are not in Australia, you will have to find someone in Australia to direct the case to because we can't send it out of the country. If you are in Australia, you can direct it to yourself. You can also direct it to someone else. Email info@finalwordcricket.com and say that you are the person that's won it, and you will be told more information about how to get it. That is all.
Brilliant. Jeff, that's been a fun story time as always. Number 254, we're back in the feed next with an interview with an international cricketer. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll tease it. An interview with an active international cricketer. That'll be coming up. I think if this is Friday, then it'll become Monday. Something like that. You'll work it out. You're smart people. 2 days after this, there'll be that. Then we'll be back with Jeff and me next week with the weekly, and we'll keep on moving through season 19. Thanks to Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. Join the Patreon and support our other partners, all of whom are in the show notes. Have a nice weekend.
See ya.